3, 2, 1, go!
Hey folks, Aaron here. Welcome back to the anime review. Today we are looking at Akudama Drive. Before I get into that though, because I do have a lot to say about Akudama Drive, which is mostly positive, I promise you. I want to explain to you guys and kind of apologize again for not having a video out as fast as I wanted to. I did talk about how, you know, anything could change in my last review, or not my last review, my last video, which I'll link in the description box below. But unfortunately, yeah, I had work out and really bad, and it was a little more than I anticipated. Actually, more than probably all of us at my job anticipated. And it was bad for about a month and a half. I kid you not, only recently it's kind of dying down a little bit. But yeah, various things happen, and as obviously when stuff happens, you know, government related, I'll put that. It's always kind of a madhouse everywhere you go. So I do apologize, guys, for not having a video out. But I got good news for you in that respect, though. I have now 3 reviews planned out. They're all done as of doing this video. The Akudama Drive will be the first one, obviously, since that's what this is. But the rest will be released out probably with, like, another one will be coming out mid-January, then one maybe toward the end of January, and then one at the beginning of February, probably. And I'm going to do this way I can kind of spread out my reviews a little bit and give you guys more monthly content, because I know I think I've had a lot of people tell me that they would just at least like me to do one review a month if I could do that. And I would love to do that too. It's hard, but I will try my best to do that, because I still love doing YouTube. It's a fun little thing to kind of just take your mind away from things, especially with recently how much stress I've been going through. It's nice to just at least talk with you guys in this respect. You know, and that, you know, maybe it's not me talking to you guys literally right now, but you know, I get to talk to you guys in the comments and hear your thoughts on stuff, and it's just kind of a nice, I want to say, just relaxing thing I could do versus, you know, everything else I do for work and stuff like that. Anyways, though, let's go back to Akudama Drive, because I have a lot to say about the show. This show was easily one of my favorite shows of the fall 2020 season. It was just incredibly well done, and it's from the creators of Danganronpa. I think specifically from the writer of Danganronpa. There's some things Danganronpa-esque in the series, like the concept similar. The some of the little like key little things they do, like for example when the characters go to another scene or transition to another scene, it does something very similar to Danganronpa, where you see like the I want to say the backgrounds drop into place, and it does that. I think that's always kind of cool to see that, because it reminds me of Danganronpa, but it's not the same thing. I don't want people to rightly go into it going, oh, this is Danganronpa. That's not. It's completely its own, you know, unique idea and concept, and it's also not a new. And it's not an adaptation or anything. Like, there's not a video game out for it, though I would love to see a game for it. To be honest with you, and it's not a light novel or visual novel or anything like that. It's its own original animation, which is kind of cool. Anyways, though, to give you guys the quick summary, as always with, you know, my reviews. So Akudama Drive takes place in a kind of future Japan, Kanto region, where after a giant war took place, you know, society's kind of had to rebuild itself. And in the rebuilding of everything, how they have it is they have this like little city. It's, you know, it's nice for the most part. It has no real issues besides one major issue, Akudama, which are criminals that are pretty bad. You know, you don't have as much crime as in like other places, but you do have these criminals specifically being the worst of the worst. And unfortunately, you know, it's like where our main character, she's not an Akudama. She doesn't start off as an Akudama. And yes, later on in the series it kind of makes it obvious she does become one because of issues. But she comes off as just an ordinary person, because her name, by the way, is legit Ordinary Girl. These characters, as you'll quickly learn, have no name. They're all very simple names. Like, for example, one of the characters is called the Brawler. One of them is the Doctor. One of them is, I believe, the Swindler is the girl who becomes the Ordinary Girl becomes the Swindler. Then you have the Hacker, and so on. And all these characters, that's it. That's their whole name. They don't have any like actual full names or anything like that. And I think that's actually very clever, because it puts them in a different role than I think most shows do, where you see these characters from a perspective that it's both very personal and also very not personal. I can't think of the word exactly for not personal, but it's interesting, because you feel for these characters. Like, for example, not to spoil too much, and I'm not going to do that obviously because I don't like doing our reviews, but for example, one of the characters, Hacker, which is one of the characters that doesn't get as much screen time as a lot of the other ones for reasons of the story. Hacker explains that his main role in life is he wants to find something exciting. He wants to find some place that he can feel free fully. And his sole thing is how great he is hacking. He hacks into all these various mainframes and concepts, but he never feels like it's a challenge, because for him it isn't a challenge. For him, it's just the next step to getting closer to hopefully the place he's seeking, which is, you'll find out later on, is another place completely. And that's what makes it very interesting, because you get this personal look on, you get his idea, his drive, his goal, but you don't get it from a sense of like, okay, here's his childhood, here's his past. There's only one character that gets any real backstory, like, I mean, full backstory, and that's Courier, who you find out very later on is this, like, the most stoic of the group, who is kind of an asshole, to be honest with you. He's pretty much an asshole, but he is someone that just does things because he's told, hey, this is how much money you're gonna make for it, go do it. And he's like, I'll do it because I have that responsibility. But at a certain point of the story, you do go into his depth, his backstory, and that's the only character you really get that much backstory from. No one else do you get that much backstory from, which I find very intriguing. But anyways, what makes Akudama Drive so cool is that all these different, basically all these different criminals end up having a kind of meeting when they're told by a cat, of all things, yes, it is a cat, tells them that they will be paid a very large amount of money if they save Cutthroat, which is another Akudama, but he's on death row. He's about to be executed publicly. And the thing is when they save him, Swindler, who is the ordinary girl, ends up just getting involved with everyone. She really didn't mean to do it. She just gets pushed into all of this, and that's why she gets her nickname the Swindler, because she tells everyone, like, oh no, I'm actually an Akudama too, I'm definitely a villain, please see me that way. I'm just, my job is to swindle people. And it's kind of ironic because she is actually swindling people, because she's not an Akudama, she's an ordinary person, but she does swindle everyone. She convinces them that she has a horrible record, and that she's actually such a great hacker that she's even beyond the skills of the hacker, and she was able to wipe out all the data and make sure that she's not seen in the system, police system, as Akudama. But all of these characters end up getting put into this almost death scenario where now that they save Cutthroat, which is very early on, it's not a spoiler, they save Cutthroat very early on, they're told that they must go and rescue a target, and they must do it by a certain time as fast as humanly possible, because there's a very short amount of time allocated to them, or they'll die. They'll their college will explode. They'll just immediately be killed. And you almost think, okay, so this could be the usual like death game trope where it's like, okay, well, they're gonna have to be forced now to work together and stuff like that. Akudama Drive pulls a very, I want to say, shifty little thing on you, because it does that for a little bit. Yes, they all have to work together, even though they're all different criminals and they all have their own reasons for doing things. But very quickly you learn that this is not the story. This is not what you're focusing on. This is just a part of it. And I think what makes this series so incredible is that it keeps you constantly guessing what will happen next. You can predict certain things, like for example, you can predict who will die, what will happen, because a lot of the episodes are named after movies or famous movies. Like for example, one episode is Shining, one is Mission Impossible, one I think is Speed, and a few others, etc. I think the only episode that's not named after a movie is the last episode, which is Akudama Drive. Ironically, it names itself after itself. But every episode is named something. Reservoir Dogs is one of the episodes too, and there's a purpose to it, I think, because if you know those movies, if you're a movie buff like myself, for example, you know what those movies are about, and you know what the main concept of that is, and that episode has that main concept somewhere thrown in. So, like, for example, the Shining episode, Cutthroat's involved in that, and let's just say it makes a lot of reference to The Shining, which I think is actually really nifty. I love the way they did that, but that's the whole point of this. Like, it's to keep you constantly guessing. It's an action thriller that just puts you at the edge of your seat every episode. And I think that's so rare for a good anime show, especially when it's only 12 episodes and it's an original, to do. Because name how many shows that are original works that aren't based on a manga or based on a light novel or even a visual novel, and then tell me, oh wait, that can't be constantly guessing, that can't be constantly just enthralled in it, because that's what this series does so well. It keeps you enthralled. Every episode you're watching, every episode you're diving into, you get lost, not just by the sci-fi aspect, because this world is pretty cool, but it's also nothing I've never seen before. You have that Blade Runner aspect where you have flying cars here and there, you have rail guns that shoot out giant laser beams, like Courier's motorcycle shoots out a giant laser cannon. You have all this stuff that you've seen before in every movie, every single sci-fi work. So it's like you don't get captured by the setting. What you get captured by is the characters, what they do in the story, and just how the story progresses, because every time you think, okay, this is how it's going to go, it doesn't. And I'll tell you right now, don't expect to have characters not die. People die in the show. Akudama Drive is not shy away from killing people, and the main characters, mind you, pretty early on. And it does it in a very smart way, because you're never like, oh, they're just killing people, they want shock value, or they want to do it for reasons of, you know, like to make you feel emotions. No, they do it for reasons that make it so it's realistic. You know, even though these characters are very far from the world realistic, like for example, let's put this way: Brawler is a character who legit fights everything. He's one of my favorite characters. He beats the shit out of everything available. He knocks people around. He destroys everything with his fists. He has no thought process besides, what can I break? How can I fight them? Are they stronger than me? I want to challenge, etc. That's the only thing that drives the Brawler. But what's great about that is he is human. As much as he's as strong as he is, as powerful he is, he's a character that he does bleed, he does get hurt, he does get stopped a few times, and he may or may not die, but, you know, I'm not going to spoil that part. But every character has a mortality to them, and despite it seeming so, like, it just seems ridiculous how these characters sometimes can or cannot die, it's never like, oh, you know, it's never shock value die. It's like, it's more like, that worked for that story. That worked for that little particular episode for that character to die because this reason or that reason. Akudama Drive, to me, was such a well done show because every episode I watched of the 12 episodes, it was fun. It was something that I watched from beginning to end without ever going, oh, it's almost done, like looking at the time clock left and going, I still got like 5 more minutes. I'm one of those people, I don't know if you guys, maybe some of you guys out there, but there's some shows that I'll watch and I will see like the little time clock because I'm just curious how many minutes are left. I want to see if I'm almost done with the episode. I didn't do that with Akudama Drive. I never once looked at the clock to see, oh, is it almost over? No, I just watched it. And a lot of times it would either feel like it was a long episode or feel like it was a short episode because I wanted more from it. And there's not many shows that do that, which is something I think enthralling about it in its own right. But what I think makes Akudama Drive even better is the fact that this is a story that's just, it's fun. It's not trying to be anything super different or super original. There's no, like I said before, the world is not original, the concepts aren't original. The idea is original to some degree, but it's also not. If you think about, like, for example, the whole setting of making people work together when they're all enemies, that's been done, what, 1 billion times. But it works for the show. It's like, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's just trying to show, hey, the wheel can be done a certain way and still be cool and still be enjoyable. And that's why I think Akudama Drive just is so satisfying of a show to watch. The only thing I probably didn't like about Akudama Drive, and I know I'm a little bit like, some people hate me for it, some people like me for it, the opening. I wasn't a big fan of that type of music. It's not horrible, it's not like the worst thing in the world, but personally I didn't like the opening too much. The ending song was forgettable. Like, I don't remember, to be honest, I don't remember listening to the ending song very much. Occasionally I think I listened to it, like maybe once or twice, just for the sake of, you know, knowing what it is, but it wasn't something that stuck with me, like, oh, you know, I really cared about it. So yeah, the music wasn't that great. There was some good music inside the show. Like, for example, the last episode alone had some epic tunes for it. But yeah, it's one of those shows that's, the music's okay. The OST is not that great. It's forgettable. Animation wise, the show is beautiful. I've never had a problem with anything on the animation side. I love the character designs. Every character was very different. That's one thing I loved about the show, was that no one character looked like a copy of another one. Every single person had a personality. And I think that's very important for characters who don't have names, technically. You know, just being titled by a nickname or what their crime is or the concept of their crime. You know, it's a risk because you don't have then enough to focus. Especially, imagine for a second like a romance show or a drama show where everyone had no names like either. They would have just name A, B, or C. That wouldn't work because you would always see all the characters be like, oh, they look very similar to one another. At Akudama Drive, everyone has a very unique style, and I think that's one of the coolest things about there is the style of it. But overall, Akudama Drive was definitely one of the better shows of the season. I hope a lot of you go check it out. If you haven't watched it already, I definitely go recommend it. It's on Funimation, I believe. You can watch it on there. And as always, guys, if I had to review Akudama Drive between A through F, I'm going to give it an A. You know, it almost is A+, almost. Just like I said before, the music wasn't that great. And I will say the ending was... The ending I appreciate, but also I think it's like, it could have been done a little differently, but it's not like one of those endings where I hated it. I didn't dislike it per se. It's just I felt like it could have been changed up to add a little bit more to it, like to flesh it out a little bit. But it does fit the scenario of the whole thing. Like, it's not. This is a show that when you watch the ending, you might feel different things out of it. But if you really sit down and think about, was there a different way to do the ending? Kind of and kind of not. Like, it ended on a way that makes sense for this type of show, especially when there's definitely not going to be season 2. There's not going to be a continuation, most likely. Maybe we'll see something pop up like an OVA. I could see that happening for characters that we really didn't get enough screen time of. But other than that, I would never see them doing a second season. Like, that would make no sense to me. But guys, I hope you guys liked the review. As always, if you did, please think about subscribing to the channel. I don't do reviews as much as I used to, obviously, but I try to get them out when I can. And if you do want to help my channel out a little bit, go to the Patreon. You know, make sure to donate. Really, I don't donate for myself. I always donate to other creators, like content creators, like cosplayers and other YouTubers that I know that I like a lot of their stuff. So I try to like spread the love right more to them than myself, because I really don't need it. So it's not like something that I desperately need, but I always make sure to let you guys know that I do have it. And as always, guys and girls, until our paths cross again in the next review, I will talk to you later. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.